Damn. Have you ever started something and realized that you needed to go to the toilet? You know? Like, you're not too sure if you can go the rest of the time that you're about to go into something, and then you do that nervous pee, just in case. Because that's something that I haven't done today and I usually do. So I'm right in thinking, am I going to make it through or not? So you're listening to this and you're knowing that there is a possibility that I may have a little tickle in my bladder. And that just makes me think, like, sometimes when we watch sports or you watch actors or you watch, you listen to music or you listen to my podcast, for example, and do you ever really think about how that person was feeling when they performed whatever they were performing? Because I was listening to Busted Baby, which is, I think it was part 2, which is Plies and my boy Neo, the guy who always wore a hat. And basically, Neo, in the chorus, kind of sounds like he's slightly sick. And I'm not sure if he's doing that on purpose or if it's the filters they were using or what. But, like, maybe he was sick and he needed to get it done. But we don't really think about how that person is in that. And, like, so maybe it's just me being super empathetic, or maybe everyone else feels like that as well. So let me know if you are one of those people. So anyway, yeah, like, that would be kind of cool, because we just assume everyone's kind of 100% in whatever the art they are doing. Every time they do it, they're feeling good. But, there's probably times, and I remember watching the Justin Bieber back in the day, because I've always been a J Biebs fan, and all y'all haters. But, he was doing his world tour, he was doing his tour, and he started getting sick. When they perform for you, you just assume that that's them at 100% every single time, because they don't really come out and talk about how sick they are. So I'm just thinking about the Olympians as well. Like, we watch them play, but we know that a lot of them aren't actually from that sort of, that sort of climate. A lot of the people, like, especially for the New Zealanders, I know some of the people who were helping with them get acclimated to the Tokyo kind of climate with the humidity as well as the heat. So you kind of see that little build up there, but we're just assuming that they're just performing and everything's so easy. But what we forget is that this is, like, it's extremely hot over there. So when you're watching it, it's really difficult to feel how it's actually going. Just remember, these athletes are human, all right? So follow that Instagram page if you are on Instagram. This is a big segue into just saying that, like, they are doing they are extremely talented people, and they are human in the end of the day. So there's going to be a lot of people who are going to rip into some people because they're like, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. But until you've put yourself into that position, bruh, shut the fuck up. But anyway, I don't know why I had to swear there, but I just had to. Cool. I am currently, the last couple of days, this is going to be a bit of an update. I'm currently running on a lot of caffeine. And it's funny, because the more you talk to people about caffeine, the more they say, like, I need to pick me up. And I thought this might be a really good time just to, like, give you a little fun fact. But what caffeine does is it actually blocks the receptors for a thing called adenosine. So adenosine is the thing that makes you feel tired. So the thing that clears adenosine is sleeping. And as you know, some people use caffeine as a thing to stop them from sleeping, so that they can stay up longer. A lot of people think that caffeine is the thing that's going to, so, you drink a coffee, you drink a sugar-free Red Bull, you drink regular Red Bull. They think that caffeine is the thing that actually gives you a boost. It's like, works like adrenaline. But what it actually does is the adenosine that's kind of building up over your day of doing everything that you've been doing in the day. So getting tired. The more tired you get, obviously, the more adenosine has been taken up by those receptors. What caffeine does is it blocks the adenosine receptors from actually getting adenosine onto them. So the more adenosine that builds up, the more you start to feel tired, and then when you sleep, you clear that adenosine away. Caffeine is found in coffee and other sugar drinks and whatnot. It blocks those receptors. So the adenosine is still in your blood. It's still there, but it just doesn't attach properly. So I tried to explain that as easy as possible. So there's a few things that are probably missing from that statement. But just, remember that there's only one thing that can really clear it, and that is sleep. So there is going to be a time where you're going to need to sleep. And that's what I did. I barely slept on Wednesday night when I was in Auckland. And I barely slept on Friday night. It's just been things that are going on, and I've had events on, and I've just been kind of all over the place, really. It's been a difficult week. But overall, I just had the most amazing sleep of all time. Because I know that I need to sleep, and what I need to do now is make sure that I also sleep tonight. Like, because I had a long ass sleep last night, I need to make sure that I actually maintain those habits. So one sleep is not going to undo all of the bad sleeping everywhere. It's just like one salad is not going to make you, extremely healthy if all you do is eat shit. And it's the opposite as well. If you eat one burger, it doesn't mean that the rest of your diet's going to go to shit, especially if you're pretty clean the whole time. So think about everything like that. Like, things happen over long periods of time, right? That's why I always talk about gratitude and thinking about where you are now, but also considering where you'll be in a year. Because one little degree shift change, it may not seem like much tomorrow, but it actually really, really changes your axis of how you're going. So I don't know if you've seen it, but 1 degree change, or 1 degree in terms of like temperature change in the world leads to global warming, and a whole bunch of just catastrophic things happen. So think about 1 degree change in terms of your trajectory, and if that compounds over a very, very long period of time, things just actually change quite a bit. And we just need to start playing the long game. Righty. So last week I talked about the things that piss you off, or how not to piss people off. So I kind of used it as the inverse, where like what pisses me off, but then also how is it that I find that I piss other people off. And my 2 more things that I need to add to that is, 1, if you are in someone's company and you're having quality time with them, the surefire way of making these people just like absolutely resent you is to be on your phone the whole time. And then engaging in conversation. Like if you are with each other and you're just enjoying each other's company, but you're not having to talk to each other, you can both be on your phone. That's fine. That's not a problem. But what I'm talking about is when you go to coffee with someone, or you're at lunch, or you're meeting up with someone, and you spend a lot of time on your phone. That's one way. I don't even have to explain it. I'm pretty sure you right now are listening and just being like, yeah, he's on to it. He's on to it. For sure. Like being on your phone, it's just, you're so distracted from everything. And we have I think attention spans of maybe like 2.2 seconds. But if you're on your phone, it takes away definitely from the conversation that you're having. Even if you are pretending to be like, oh yeah, but you're still scrolling at the same time. So that's one. And also one that I found, just because, my time in Auckland, what really got to me was not doing what you say you will do. Right? So that's all part of integrity. And I don't mean this in terms of like, I'm going to try do this, and then you don't because a lot of other things come up. I'm meaning if you make all of these promises, or like who you are as a person, this is what I'm saying I'm going to do because it's who I am as a person. It's my values, blah, 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 blah. Because a lot of people, values are sexy right now. Values are super sexy. So a lot of people kind of come up with the values that seem to be the best ones to be talking about. If you don't display those characteristics, or if you don't do the things that you say you're going to do, that is something that can really, really annoy other people. Not only will it annoy people, but what it does is it kind of decreases your validity as a person, or as that person that you say you are. And then your reliability in terms of what people want from you is probably going to go down. So unless that's what you're doing on purpose, but yeah, it's really easy to tell people who just talk, and they just talk out their ass. So yeah. That's 2 more things that I wanted to add to last week's episode, and I feel like it's probably going to be things that kind of come up over the time, and I'll just keep adding them in as we go. Righty, so my trip to Auckland, I went up to Auckland because we were going to attend a Pacific Leadership Summit. Now, there isn't much that I can talk about in terms of the event itself or how it actually transpired, because I didn't enjoy myself overall. It was it was just something I don't want to really get into, just because then we'll have paper trail, or we'll have a voice trail of how the whole thing went. But it wasn't as enjoyable as it should have been. There was a multitude of factors that kind of went into that, but what I can take away from this was that the team that I went up with was absolutely unbelievable. I loved every moment that I had with them, and even though we were kind of put in one of the worst positions possible, not worst positions possible, but in a very unideal situation, it's really nice to have other people who are, part of that struggle with you. I'm not talking about struggle in terms of like, we're eating Cocoa Pops, but I mean struggle as in not feeling like that's where we were meant to be at that time, I think. So having a bunch of people there who were on the same kind of kaupapa as we were, and we were all dressed the same as well, that kind of helps, and we were all staying at the same place, and we went up as a team. But I think when you have moments like that, and you do work as a team, that's what reminds you of, why you do what you do. It's not the other people who kind of come and see it from afar, and they're just like, oh, I think they do like quite a bit, and kind of get taken for granted. It's to see that these are the people that we ride with all the time. And just to see how everyone pulled through, it was amazing, and it made me really, really, kind of cherish that relationship that I have with these people. These are people that I work with every single day, And just because I see them on a daily basis, it's hard to tell just how hardworking we are until we get put into a different environment where everything's not usual anymore, but to see just how we adapted to everything that was needed from us. So all I'll say to this, and it might fire you up a little bit, but I'm still fired up about it, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. But we were paying guests who ended up having to work and do quite a bit at this event. So it was frustrating. It kind of makes you feel like your validity as a group kind of goes down a little bit. But it's just one of those things where just get taken advantage of, and that just happens to be the way sometimes. But I'll talk about the good stuff that came from it. So I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, especially the people in my team who I work with every single day, but don't really get to chat with because we're never really on the same stuff. Like, for example, they might be student support and I'm researcher. As a researcher, you kind of only talk to other researchers, but you don't actually talk to a lot of the people who are on the ground level. But you also don't really talk to other people who are in different offices from you, even though you're in the same department. But there's just really, really... Oh, actually, no, that was the first one. When I got there, there were a couple of people there who actually listened to the podcast. So shout out to Kim that I met, Amy that I met, for coming up to me and just saying, yeah, you do the podcast, I've been listening to you for a while, and actually being happy. And then also knowing that they actually listen to the podcast, like they're not people who just follow the page and then they're just like, yeah, I listen to it because they like actually brought up specific examples of things that I've said. And I'm like, man, for someone who talks so much shit, it's nice to know that I have an impact on people. And this is in a different city as well. So we national right now. We're actually international, but we super national as well. And it's cool to meet people through social media, which is kind of scary, but also kind of cool. And also that I put out so much of myself out here that when I meet people, they just say, oh, you're exactly like you are on your podcast. And that's just because that's who I am. I don't come on here and talk trash. Well, I do talk trash, but I don't come on here and lie. I just try to be as me as I am. So that was really, really cool. And it was kind of a reminder to me to keep doing what I'm doing. So yeah, it was really nice to meet you too. And yeah, for someone who isn't really out there much, like it did make me feel like a semi-celebrity. So if you do see me in public, do say hi. Another one was that we got talking about the quadrants of work. So, there's sometimes these quadrants that people write up. It's like something that's important and urgent, then important but not urgent, then not important, urgent, and then free. Anyway, you get it. You get what I'm trying to say. But what we did was I was talking to someone who was talking about, trying to prioritize your time and looking at circles. So kind of the distractions are the ones around the outsides, and things that you need to start doing are towards the middle. And what I found when I was listening to him talk is that using these circles, it kind of thinks about how you need to be and operate so that you can also, be, focusing on your own well-being, because those quadrants of work, that's talking about other people's work. And when you're talking about other people's work or things that you need to get done for other people, you are talking about putting your resources into someone else's dream, or putting your resources in to actually help someone else progress along that way. When we look at it that way, we look at work as a very objective thing, and this is just, we need to tick, 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 do all these different things. But when we look at it as the circles, and you are, the things that you need to service are most important in the middle, and then that'll help you kind of deal with the other distractions. It will either mean that the distractions on the outside are just not important at all, so you never need to get to them, or it will just mean that you're in the best position to be able to get to them when you get that time. So the things on the outside, like watching your TV, your social medias, your everything, pretty much listening to this podcast, unless it is something that it helps you. And then what I was thinking is that maybe more towards the middle is like exercising, eating well, spending time with your family, getting out and actually like socializing with people who make you happy. That's never seen as something that's important because we're always so stuck in this work world where we need to get so much done. But you get more done if you're in a better position, or if you're in a better mindset, or if you're actually just enjoying life. You're more likely to have a greater output. And now we shouldn't be talking about things in output all the time, but if you're not focusing on yourself in that middle little quadrant there, and you're expecting to do all these really, really great outputs, all you're going to do is burn yourself into the ground. So I think prioritizing those things, so maybe looking at things that you absolutely cannot negotiate whatsoever. So for me, that's exercise, that's sleep, that's food, that's good food, and it's good social time with different people. But it's also making sure that I'm not being too social, because as you all know, I can only talk to about 4 people per day. yeah, so that was just like really, for me, that was really, really quite eye-opening again, because I realized the reason why I was so mad about how that time went in Auckland was because we were there doing other people's bidding and we never agreed to actually doing it. And that seems to be the way that everything works, especially in a export or a kind of outcomes world, where a lot of people want stuff done, but they want it done as easily as possible, so they'll just get other people to do as much as they can for them. So yeah, that was making sure that you prioritize yourself. It doesn't matter how you do that, but making sure that those are the things you do not negotiate, and those are the things that you plan everything else around. So making sure you understand what those important things are to you, and then going forward from there. Another thing that kind of came out, I don't know if you saw it, so if you follow me on Instagram, I put it on my story. We had a news talk, a news, what's that thing called? TVNZ? No, the radio. There was a radio interview that went out, and then they had an article that came along with it. And it's a research project that I've been involved with, which is looking at the Healthy Living Index. So that Healthy Living Index is the HLI, and what it does is it categorizes different places in New Zealand, and it shows if you're in a red zone, a blue zone, or a green zone. So the red zones being stuff like casinos, fast food takeaways, like dairies, stuff that can kind of contribute to really, really bad health, so like alcohol stores and all that sort of stuff. Green zones are the places that you can go do physical activity. Green areas like forest walks or just green in general, and then blue zones are, natural running water. Just really, really good places for you, like scenery and whatnot as well. So what we're doing is we're looking at the relationship between the different zones that people live in and the effect that that has on children's mental health. So it's a huge, we're just looking at a lot of data, and we're looking at who accesses different services for different mental health cases and whatnot. And it just kind of hit me a little bit more. So we had a radio show on that, and I guess because we live right now, so we're quite privileged. I guess I'm quite privileged now to be in the area that I'm in, but I do remember growing up, the area that I grew up in, so for example, Purido or Cannons Creek in Purido would have been really a red zone, low socioeconomic area, a lot of alcohol stores around the place, and a lot of state housing, all that sort of stuff. And that was just how I grew up, and I didn't know any different until I actually moved to the city, and then I obviously moved down to Dunedin, where it's just so different. It's really, really different, and those are things that people, find really, really difficult to understand if you've never lived in that situation before. It's difficult to, if you live in, it came about when we were in Mangere because we went to go, find some alcohol. And we went to this place where after night, they did night pay, where they had bars and you had to go tell them what you wanted, they go grab it, and then they bring it back to you and you pay through some bars. And you can't go into the store. And that's basically when I realized what it was for, is just because so many people going in there and robbing these places. It just makes you feel like far out. We're actually so sheltered where we are. And when people make comments, stupid comments about oh yeah, they can pull themselves out, or it's their fault for being that way, because if they didn't do it, they really are a pick yourself up by the bootstrap sort of person. And it's the individual's fault as opposed to everything else that's going on. Now, this is something that I'm extremely, extremely passionate about, because a lot of my research is looking at discrepancies in health for Pacific peoples and Māori people, and a lot of people do say if they just exercised more, if they just did all that blah 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 blah, they would be fine. It's all on the individual. But tell me of an environment that you've grown up where you haven't picked up some sort of habit because of the way that you grew up, because of the things that were available to you, because of the resources that you had, because of what was normal behavior or normal practice where you grew up. Not many. You can barely hang out with your own friend for 2 weeks without starting to pick up mannerisms that they have. Right? The habits or the hobbies that you have is because of the people that are around you. The things that, when you grow up with different people and their families just did stuff, that's why they do it. Right? A lot of what you do is because of what is being role modeled around you. And I'm not trying to say that because you grow up in a lower socioeconomic area, it's the people above you that make sure, it's not their behavior that challenges you. It's what's available to you. It's the environment that you live in that changes the way that they are, which then models to you how it is. In some areas where they just have a whole bunch of casinos, or when I think about when I was in Puridoa or Mangere, the areas that were around you were we were pretty much in a red zone, right? So all of that stuff is going to definitely affect how you are. It's going to definitely, just because it's in a lower socioeconomic area, right, they're going to have more fast food outlets. They're going to have more alcohol outlets. They're going to have more pokies and places to do gambling and all that sort of stuff. So you're telling me that if you set up in an environment like that, all you need to do is just not go to those different places. It's a lot easier to say that if you've never actually experienced that. So I think y'all who say that sort of stuff and just be like, oh yeah, they should do this, they should do that. Yeah, you should get a life, and you should actually start to try think about or empathize with how these people have to live. And for me, that's difficult because I think there's a lot of systemic issues. There's a lot of things that happen at a higher level that people just aren't really aware of because you're not aware of policy. You're not aware of how things go down. So simply saying that some person or one individual can then change the behavior of their family, which would then change the behavior of like everyone else after that, and it's an individual problem. I think your head is so far up your ass that you need to do some reading, or maybe just go put yourself in one of those areas or those environments and see how well you last as well. Cool, right, so there's that. And then also while I was up there talking about all of this sort of stuff, we were listening to the radio, and there was this lady who came on, and she was talking about how the emergence or the inclusion of Māori names, even just like Māori in general, the language, a bit more in everyday language, or actually just like giving it a bit more time and a bit more space, I guess. She was just saying that it's really, really dangerous because and then she went through this long ass. She's like, so what language are we speaking right now? And they're like, English. And then she was like, yeah. And when we go overseas, when we talk to people, do we speak to them in Māori or English? And it's like English, and then I don't know. I guess what she was trying to say is that we are an English speaking nation. Okay, so we do speak a lot of English. But then she went on to go make some stupid-ass comments just to say, if we change the names on signs to the Māori word, for example, like Oranga Tamariki instead of like Child Youth Protection Services, people aren't going to know where to find that place because we can't speak Māori. She had like, oh gosh, why is it that when people try to make, people have no evidence for what they're trying to say, they just make the most stupidest claims ever of all time? Like, I know everyone is entitled to feel the way that they feel about something, but if you're going to come at something, like, what is it across that time that actually makes you feel like this is the right thing to say, rather than just feeling like you don't want this to happen? Like, what is it? I can't, like, some people, come on, get it together. That was her name, by the way. But what she doesn't understand is that we were a Māori-speaking nation forever until we had the introduction of European people, because that's a thing called colonization. And when they come in, when they try to colonize people or build colonies, what you do is you make them assimilate to how you are. That means that you can change this, you can change what is common sense, you can change the norm of a place over time and time and time of just introducing different things. We can change over time. Yes, we are an English-speaking nation now, but we still have people who speak Māori, and Māori is still one of the national languages of Aotearoa. And if I said, once again, I've said it once, I've said it twice, I'll say it 4 times. Aotearoa is landed a long white cloud, aka the original name of New Zealand. So I'll use it all I want, and this is not a Facebook comment thing where you're just going to come in and be like, oh, I'm not from Aotearoa, I'm from New Zealand, I'm a Kiwi. I'll tell you something, a Kiwi is not a nationality, alright? A Kiwi is someone from Aotearoa. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting I'm getting really fooled on. But it's a bunch of decisions over time that are made, and then that makes the point of what becomes normal. Okay, so what becomes normal? What is normal now is not going to be normal in about 5 to 10 years, right? What was normal 10 years ago to wear and all that sort of stuff, the language that we use, if you just look at how much things are changing with the social justice movements and whatnot, what is accepted or what is tolerable is changing. The tides are changing. The way that we live is changing. Sports changes. Rules change. Everything changes, right? So over time, just because now we are an English-speaking nation doesn't mean that we cannot introduce those different things. So, sort yourself out as well. I don't know why I'm coming out so angry. I'm actually in a really, really good mood right now. But those are the sorts of things that we have to deal with every single day when we come to work. Right? There's a lot of people who just don't think our jobs are important because we're dealing with minority groups, or we're dealing with Pacific people and Māori people. Firstly, Māori people are protected under the treaty, and Pacific people have been promised, like especially the people from like Cook Islanders, where we are realm countries and we are protected by New Zealand. So, those are just the things that we pretty much have to come in and justify why it is we are here at this university all the stinking time, even though we're some stupid ass smart people. Like, we are dumb smart. Like, this is so much special. Oh gosh, anyway. But anyway, this Di person, all I can say is that I could smell what perfume she was wearing, and I knew exactly what haircut she had, just by the way she was talking. So anyway, that's just everything that's been going on. I just went on and rambled and gave everything, but those are some things to think about for sure. Definitely, thinking about the environments that people are within and why it is that people act the way that they do. Typically, it's not because that is an individual trait. It's usually, learned behavior over time. And if you are, for example, someone who lives coastally and by the water, you are more likely to engage in more water activities. If you're landlocked, you're going to do less water activities and you're going to be less good at it when you grow up because you've never been surrounded by it. That's just the way environments work. We are the product of our environments. So the next time you start to judge different people or, think about why it is that some people act the way that they do, you need to think about where they were brought up and what was surrounding them in that time. And then from there, I think you'll be a lot more empathetic to the way that some people are. And you'll stop saying stupid stuff, so like they should just exercise more, or why don't they just eat more vegetables? Because that is something that once you understand, you can then start to actually positively contribute to the problem, instead of saying that everyone else has problems and they just need to deal with it by themselves. Anyway, have a great week. Have a good think about it. Share this around if you have to. Cancel me if you want to. Give me a go. I'm ready to take anyone on if you need to. I love you all. As always, stay real.